Listen up, Texas anglers. I have a question for you. What do black bass and red snapper have in common? Well, they are two popular species that our guides like to fish for and to talk about. So get ready for our expert reports here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
This is the Texas Insider Fishing Report. I'm Brie Gabrielle here with Captain Rick Murphy, and we are more than ready to bring you into that May bite along with our qualified captains and guides. Rick, from the looks of it, we're off to a great start into the month of May, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, and it looks like our weather pattern is starting to settle a little, which is going to allow our guys to expand.
Exactly.
And expanding in throughout their regions is what this show is really all about, Brie.
You're absolutely right. Well, also here to help find our way through some new techniques and products is Dave Ferrell at the CCA Workbench. Dave,
yeah,
I see you have one of our friends.
I do.
with you.
Chad Kinney from the Lower Coast region is going to come in here and tell us a little bit about kingfishing, and you know, he can do it. You know, he knows it more than me. So
I'm ready.
I'm glad you're here, Chad. It is so good to see you in studio.
I know, it's glad to have your face here, Chad. All right, well, let's go ahead and get things going in the Yeti Upper Fresh region with Johnny Geist talking about big bites from big fish on Ray Roberts, Lake Fork, and Grapevine. So, Johnny, let's go.
Hey, Brie, Rick, how are y'all tonight?
We're doing good, Johnny. How are you?
Great, man. I got a good report from a fellow guide, Mike Flanagan with North Texas Fish and Guide Service. He reports that all species of fish around the Dallas-Fort Worth have been just a little tough to catch this week. Recent heavy rains and high winds, man, they stirred up the area lakes, and they make consistent catches of bass and sand bass a challenge for sure. Mike reports that spawn's almost finished on Ray Roberts and Grapevine, but there's still some bedding activity on the main lake coast. The clarity of that water has made sight fishing almost impossible, but he's still catching them on the Carolina rigs using several types of soft plastics. The best technique of most days is a Nico, wacky worm, and green pumpkin. Some days there's an early topwater bite on the windy points when the shad are active, but it doesn't last so long, so you got to get out there early. Black buzzbait seems to be the best lure to catch them in. Windy days, use a square bill crankbait and a heavy Carolina rig to locate the biting fish. Spawn is done in the back of the creek, so focus your efforts on the main lake coves out to about 8 feet. And when you get some stable weather, the bass fishing is going to improve greatly. So if you get around the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you want to give Mike a call at North Texas Fish and Guide Service, he'll be glad to put you on some biting fish. He sent in a couple of pictures of some happy customers. I don't think he's been having too bad of a day, do you?
No, golly.
Wow.
Just tell me about the second one. Whoa,
Hey,
what a stud.
Some real good fish for Mike's customers. Let's move on over to Lake Fork. We got a lot going over here. The big bass continue to be the main attraction. This week we've been fishing, been catching some bass on several different patterns. Some anglers are totally committed to sight fishing for big bass, but again, high winds and heavy rains have made this a challenge. Anglers that really cover a lot of shoreline and know those protected coves and ditches and old ponds, they can still find some large bass holding on beds. Some anglers even resorted to using a ladder on a platform on the bow of their boats to get more elevated view to be able to see the bed of bass. That works. Hey, the early spawners have moved out to the main lake points, but they're still holding fairly shallow. The bluegill and the shad, they're starting to spawn, and the post-spawn bass are feeding on schools of shad and the brim. A frog works best around the brim beds, and numerous big bass will be around each spawning bed. Best pattern to catch some big ones is to target the main lake points. Look for some shad spawning every morning. The blue herons and the seagulls usually around the active points, and you can see the shad being chased up on the bank. Topwater activity starts early, so try to get out on the water to break the dawn. Use a large walking type lure, a whopper flopper, and a buzz bait, and those are good choices to catch fish. Another emerging technique is slow rolling the large swim baits around main lake points. Some big bass are making some vicious strikes, so it's a fun way to catch them. Well, this week we got the Bassmaster Elite Anglers here on Fort for a 4-day event starting Thursday. They'll each have a marshal in the boat, and they'll be able to weigh in their total catches. Best 5 each day will determine the leader. As you know, Lake Fork's got that slot limit, so you usually have to release the bass between 16 and 24. But under this marshal format, their best 5 will be weighed in as they catch them, and they're expecting some eye-popping weight. So each day you can watch the live anglers on live on the Bassmaster website. and you should see some impressive fish being boated by the elite pros. And one of the very own Lake Fork guides, Lee Livesey, is now fishing the elites, and he'll be a crowd favorite for sure. We want him to win. Each year, May and June are excellent months to fish on Fork. Early topwater bites, steady deep water structure fishing make for some fun fishing days. But hopefully this weather settle down, the lake will clear up, and it's game on here at Lake Fork. Oh, the big sand bass finally showed back up, and I expect the big bass will be soon out to that 25 to 30 foot depths also. Here's a picture of one of 3 bass I caught this week over the slot, so there's still some good ones, 3 or 4 foot of water.
Nice, Johnny.
Nice, Johnny.
Hey, real quick, May's an excellent month for fishing on Lake Fork, so make plans to give Fork a try soon. Next week's show, I'll be reporting on a couple of fantastic northeast Texas lakes just east of Lake Fork. Yesterday, we made a quick trip over there and caught 45 bass on topwater baits by noon. So tune in next week. We're going to have some good patterns to show.
All right, thank you so much, Bud. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the upper fresh hot spots. Johnny says Lake Grapevine, high winds and heavy rains are making it tough. Topwater lures and square bills are working the best. Ray Roberts, same pattern of square bills, crankbaits, and topwaters are working early in the day. And then Lake Fork, some big bass still on the nest and biting on Carolina rigs and soft plastics. Topwater early on shad spawn. Main Lake Points is where it's going to happen, Bree.
Big bass. Emphasize the big bass.
Big bass.
Big bass. All right, the Fish Bites Upper Coast region always has it going on, inshore and offshore, and Captain Carl Weston is going to guide you through it all. Hey, Carl.
Hi, Rick and Bree.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Hey, the trout bite in our area has blown up. They're on fire right now. So a lot of the trout have moved out deep in East Galveston Bay towards our reefs in the middle of the bay. East Galveston Bay is covered in oyster reefs, so drifting with soft plastic, lures such as mirror lure, little johns, marsh minnow, paddle tails work very well, rigged on an 1/8 ounce jig head. If the fish are really deep and there's quite a bit of current, try to switch it over to a 1/4 ounce jig head. It'll get you deeper and closer to the fish. So, and I'll always out there look for slicks where these fish are feeding. They'll be more congregated on top of the structure in these areas. And use your depth finder to find these high points within the reefs and fish the edge of these reefs. Here we have a picture of Tyler with a nice trout from this week.
Oh, that is a nice one. Looks like he's doing a little wading there, Carl. I guess I'm looking forward to that. Next week, we're going to be talking about wading in your region. Tell me a little bit about the flounder, Bubba.
Well, we're still seeing good numbers of flounder around the mouth of the bayou drains in East Galveston Bay, along the bulkheads and bridge pylons. Pitch and paddle tail soft plastics like Bass Assassin in a solid white or yellow has produced some really good bite. And here we have a picture with a happy young man from last week with a nice little flounder.
Nice. All right, well, how about some offshore fishing? What do you got?
Well, we haven't been able to get out a whole lot, but we're going to talk a little bit about Jack Crevalle, which is a species you can target inshore and offshore. They've been showing up in the, like I say, in the near shore and deep offshore rigs. These fish are not good table fare, but pound for pound are probably one of the best fighting fish in our area. So trolling or casting a 2 to 4 ounce bucktail jig tipped with, say, fish bites bait strips in the bloodworm will really get the job done. And be sure to live release these fish. Take your picture. Try not to handle them too much if possible and get them back in the water.
So, Carl, I got a question for you about those big jacks. Are they big schools or are these fish that are roaming? Tell me a little bit about what that picture looks like.
Well, these were, there's a picture of Samantha with one we caught on deep water structure. Mm-hmm. And those fish are schooled up around the structure. A lot of times we'll run behind the shrimp boats in closer and they'll be schooled up chasing the shrimp boats. Then from time, inshore closer around the beaches and the jetties, you'll find more single fish. Usually not as big, and so you'll pick through them with array of other fish at the same time.
Well, that's some great advice about catch and releasing those guys. I'm sure they're not very good table fare. But speaking of good table fare, I see that you have mangrove snapper as part of your report this week. Why don't you update us on what's happening?
We sure do, and we've been getting some good reports on mangrove. which are an excellent species to target during the closed red snapper season. Tactics for these fish are similar to fishing for snapper and in the same area. You know, you hit your bottom structure, that's going to be your target offshore. And we love to chum these fish up to the boat and sight cast them so you can pick between them and the red snapper. Using live shrimp or small live shad is your best bait of choice. And I got a picture here with Mr. Slade Sloan with a nice mangrove from last week.
So, Carl, I got another snapper question for you. You know, you're talking about finding the mangroves and the red snappers together. Are you doing anything different to increase your odds of catching the mangrove and eliminate those red snappers from biting? Is there a trick to that?
Well, there is. Like I say, we chum them up to the boat, and the red snapper are more aggressive than the mangrove. So you can take a handful of chum and throw it, say, towards the front of the boat or the stern of the boat, wherever you don't want to be fishing. And the red snapper will chase that chum, and it gives you an opportunity to sight cast to the mangrove.
Oh,
It's the bait and switch.
I got you. So you're tricking the little red snappers to get out of the picture.
Yeah, you have to. You have
all
to.
right.
They're always hungry. Yeah.
Well, thanks. Great report from the Fish Bites Upper Coast region. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Mirror hotspots from the Upper Coast. He says inshore trout. They are around all the mid-bay reefs in Galveston Bay, drifting over the reefs while throwing Mirror Little Johns and a Purple Demon on an 1/8-ounce Bass Assassin jig head will work. Make sure you look for the slicks to pinpoint the schools. And then offshore, mangrove snappers. They are on the offshore structure. Sight cast these fish with shrimp or small live shad are producing some good bites this spring, Brie.
Those are some good questions, Rick.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we're just getting our feet wet here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. And next up, we have a surprise guest, which we already kind of ruined the surprise, but Chad is over here with Dave Ferrell at CCA Workbench. Chad's here from the Lower Coast region.
Ta-da!
And you're going to have some rings and techniques,
Yes,
right?
we are.
It's going to be unforgettable.
It will be unforgettable. Kingfish unforgettable.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Royally
I can't wait to
unforgettable.
get over
Can't
there.
wait. Can't wait. See you guys soon.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Casa Vieja Lodge. 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala. Garmin. Join the club. Sportsman's Adventures. Fishing for adventure. And CCA Texas, a leader in marine conservation.
Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 offshore 4-strokes. For those that like their V6 lighter, faster, and stronger. Setting new standards for power, efficiency, speed, and lightweight. Built for the rigors of offshore boating. Packed with Yamaha's legendary reliability. And now Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 4-strokes offer a choice between digital or mechanical controls to match your rigging preference. Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore. Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
If you're not a member of Coastal Conservation Association, you need to be. CCA fights on a national and state level for our fishing rights so that our children and grandchildren will have fish to catch today and in the future. CCA, through their habitat programs, create oyster and artificial reefs, as well as many other habitat programs. CCA also each year releases millions of trout, redfish, and flounder, so join myself, Brie, and Dave and become a member of CCA now. Well, we're here at the CCA Workbench, and you know, it's so awesome to have you in the studio, Chad. The Lower Coast guy is here from the Garmin region, but you know what? We got some rigs and techniques to talk about. It's right in your wheelhouse.
We're talking about kingfish. He fishes offshore a lot, thank goodness. And we're going to talk a little bit about how he goes about catching kingfish where he lives. You know, kingfish, they're a mackerel fish, and they get pretty big and they have razor sharp teeth. So first off, whenever you're going to be using fishing for a kingfish, we're going to be using wire. correct?
Correct. Yeah. If not, you're
You're going to be losing all your stuff.
Yeah, don't use your mono. You'll lose it all.
Correct. So what size wire do you use, like where you guys fish?
Primarily, we use number 8 and number 9 wire.
So you're targeting some pretty good sized fish
Some
most
big
of the time?
kingfish, yeah. We're up in the 20 to 45, 50 pound range.
I got you. And what's your favorite bait to use when you're using
Favorite bait down there, if you get it, we got our own boats, we run and stuff like that, but fresh ribbon fish is hard to beat right down there.
That's what all the tournament boys use too,
yeah,
isn't it?
that's some good
Is that
stuff.
what, you've won a few tournaments with that ribbon fish rig,
yes, I have quite a few.
Now that's a kind of an example of one right there that Rick's got. It's pretty much a gang of trebles that you run down the back of the ribbon fish, correct?
Yeah, correct. The key thing is when you bait those fish like that, pin them on the nose and the middle and the back to make sure they're straight. Lay them flat on your boat or your cleaning table to make sure they're going to float properly.
Right. And how do you fish those baits?
Those baits on that, you can do a couple things. If you anchor up, guys, and you're in your favorite structure, go ahead and free line one way out there or get a spinning reel, cast it as far as you can. And I also like putting a balloon and maybe 15 foot down, have your bait, float that out. And if you want to get a little extra fancy, put your outrigger out and throw a third one way back on a balloon.
On a balloon as well?
Correct, yes.
And are you moving the boat slowly, bumping it into gear?
On that stuff,
you're anchored, but are you letting line out, free lining
Yeah,
it?
free line the whole way, have your thumb on it, so when they hit, they're going to hit fast. And you got to get ready and don't burn your thumb, but just barely move it up to strike, and that'll set the hook for you.
I gotcha. And are you use treble hooks on them all, or are you?
You can use trebles. Lots of times I use some single hooks, a lot sturdier, get a high tensile strength.
Right.
They don't pull the hooks, and keep the drag a little bit lighter. That way they get hooked in the side and all over. That way you won't pull the hooks on them as bad.
Right. Have you now here when I'm trolling, when I'm using a big bait trolling it, I use a stinger rig. Do you guys ever use that? A small section of wire with a little treble hook on the back?
A lot of guys sure do.
Like one of these?
Yeah, it's very, very effective. You can go through the back of that. That way if they miss the actual bait on the back, you got an extra hook to come up and get them.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's this rig all about, Dave?
Well, that's kind of like the same sort of thing. That's a ribbon fish rig with, for a big ribbon fish or a big bait. You could even put a big blue runner on that sort of thing. And because the mackerel likes to come and take fish from the back, they'll usually try to take the tail off. It's good to have all those hooks, trailing down the back of the bait.
So this is what it's going to look like this.
Correct. It'll be all stretched out. You'll have the ribbon fishes under his chin right here, or the bait under his chin.
Do you like using one with a weight so that it helps weight him and he floats down a little?
Higher current, yeah.
Yeah.
If you start using that with a little higher current, then do that.
That's pretty smart. How'd you get so smart?
And you can also, you can also troll diving plugs and spoons, and on a downrigger. The drone spoon is probably one of my favorite baits. So here's one right here, a number 3 drone spoon. When I use anything that's flashing back there, that's 20, 30 feet underneath the water, moving kind of, not incredibly fast, but sort of fast, you can get all kinds of bites on that thing. And for one thing, another good thing about it, it's got a single hook on it. So if you're catching a lot of little ones and you're wanting to go through them and only keep the bigger ones, you don't really tear up the king mackerel all that much. You can, if you're using treble hooks and letting fish go, you might as well just go ahead and kill them because you've tore a lot of them up. I know I have. Trying to let them go.
Do you troll many mirror lures like this one?
Oh yeah, sure. I've got a bunch of them that have so many teeth marks, and they hold up really, really well. But these things, we're talking about trolling speeds and stuff like that. When you're targeting kingfish, I like hitting these things at about 5.5, maybe 6 knots.
Right.
And if you're looking for the best conditions, look for full sun, not overcast, and everything else like that. You get the full shine out there, get the shiny stuff going, and get ready.
Yep. I like to use sea witches and stuff. This is called the island witch, but I use a sea witch on top of ballyhoos, anything to add a little bit of color. And a lot of guys will say that the baits have to be down a little ways. I've caught a ton of kingfish right on the surface, trolling big surface baits, and how we target the biggest fish is we try to catch, if we get on a wreck or something, we'll catch whatever's down there and put it and fish it on a live line, on a flat line, and just festoon him the same way he does with a dead ribbon fish. We'll do the same thing with a live little snapper or a grunt or anything that we catch off the bottom.
A hard
tail,
yeah.
Any big live bait, especially during the summertime, real in close to shore, around the inlets and stuff, when there's pogey pods or schools of bait in there, you put those big live baits out there on a flat line and they get creamed by big kingfish. Big kingfish like big live baits.
You guys did well. Maybe this should be a permanent position for you.
It's a long way away.
So, you know, Chad, certainly the Lower Coast region, the Garmin Lower Coast region is what you represent us every week. So why don't we talk a little bit about what's going on in the Lower Coast region? You got some special news for us.
Yeah, I got some great news. Port Mansfield, Willacy County Navigation District, we've been working on this for years, but we finally got it to where the dredges there from the Y all the way into the harbor is already done. It was silted in, so we're down to about 14 foot deep right now. And the project's going to finish up throughout the year, all the way through the jetties, which is silted in, of course, right now, but that'll be done by the end of 2019 this year. So it's going to start in September, so we're going to have 22-foot depth at the jetties, all the way through to the harbor, which is going to immensely help our water flow, of course, which will bring in more bait fish, which brings in more fish to produce.
How deep is it now?
Right now at the jetties, you really got to watch out. If you guys go right now, call me. I'll tell you how to get there. So right now we're at 2-3 feet in the center. And we got about 8 foot, and we got a little river that goes through there.
That's a ton of difference.
It's a big difference. So we're going to have all that tidal flow coming out, which will leave all my region. It'll help Baffin Bay, it'll help Port Mansfield, it'll help South Padre Island. Not to mention, it'll help all the big boat traffic and come back in and get out safely.
All right, well, we got to get into your report, so tell me about the redfish.
Stuff. Yeah, the redfish, and talked to Doug Stanford, and he did really good on the redfish there out of Estes Flats using popping cork. And live shrimp's working really, really good on that. And then most of the redfish are in that slot redfish, 20 to 28 inches. And then the bigger redfish, if you're wanting those, if you're targeting those, hit the ICW and the channels leading into the Gulf there. The jetties has also been really on fire. You get some good weather, hit that. Try the sand pockets also in Redfish Bay. That's working good. If you're looking for those bigger fish like that, hit some fresh cut Menhaden. They've been working really well along the drop-offs and some guts in the deeper water there and stuff like that. We got a picture there of a redfish with a client that he's had there. Solid redfish there.
Look at all the pretty spots.
Oh,
Everybody loves multiple spots.
Yeah, I love that. Moving on to the trout fishing. Trout fishing's been really good up in Corpus area too, Port Aransas along the ICW. And the land cut's still good. We hit on that about a week or two ago, but producing really good numbers. And then heading farther south out of my port here in Mansfield, look for the deeper weed beds. Trout are still holding there on the breaks. And the live croaker is really coming up now. May 1st actually starts, guys, where the live croaker is going to be in full force all the way through the end of September, and they're hitting them. I used them here recently, and if you want to, free line them, attach a 30-pound mono, fluorocarbon leader, chatterweight's working really good with a 5/0 Kale hook. And if you're throwing some soft plastics, try some Saltwater Assassins 5-inch saltwater shad, or you can use a Mirror Lure Provoker 5-inch scented twitch bait and hit those edges and cast in the sand pockets, work the edge of the grass. It's working really, really well on that. Got a picture here. We had some clients the other day on the trout. Usually I don't pick all stuff like this, but you can see they're all 18 to 22 inch solid trout. We got some bigger ones.
Whoa.
And it's working good.
That was in there.
I'd say that's some fatties,
So
big boy.
Solid haul there. Moving to the offshore, got some really good stuff for you guys offshore. Had a boat headed out deep to floater rigs, any lower course, from Port A, Port Mansfield, South Padre. Try Hoover, Diane, Boom Bang, Perdido. Look for the deep rips and weed lines, stuff like that. If you're targeting billfish, which are out there, then put out a full spread, about 5 lines or more. Make sure you have several Islander lures rigged up with a ballyhoo. You got to have these in your arsenal at all times. Everybody's pulling them. They pull best, I think, on the riggers and the shotgun, which is your center rigger. Pull some chuggers or mid-range lures on the flat lines. And of course, watch your baits really good. You got sailfish, white marlin, blue marlin, everything else will be out there. I'll go ahead and hit that stuff. If you find some tuna moving and jumping on bait balls and stuff like that, guys, stick around that area. There's probably a big billfish nearby or blue pushing those bait up. And we got a good photo here of a blue marlin released on Sigsbee Deep this past time.
Nice.
Got a good solid fish there. Moving over, when you're heading out deep to those floater rigs, there's always a good chance, you come across some yellowfin tuna, some good table fare. So when you're trolling along, billfish spread out maybe, or change out to a few smaller baits, get some squid, daisy chains, cedar plugs, small Islander lures. Rigs work well. Keep an eye on your baits for big blow-ups. Monster hole in the water might mean that you hooked into a big bluefin tuna. These aren't very common out here at Texas all, but late April, May does. But we had a good, you better have a good angler, good captain, and plenty of lines. We got deep water. We got a great picture from Sigsbee Deep here.
Wow.
605-pound blue marlin.
All right, well, we're not going to let you off the hook so quickly.
Bluefin tuna.
Bluefin tuna.
Bluefin tuna.
Marlin tuna.
Keep the bluefin tuna.
Yes. You got to have your HMS permit, and it comes with that, and you're allowed one.
How big was that fish?
605.
How long did it take them to catch that?
They called me up or texted me about an hour and a half into it, so I think it's about an hour and a half, 2 hour fight.
Whoa.
Wow.
So,
That's crazy.
So Chad,
You did
if
so
somebody's
good.
thinking about going offshore, you know, to go out to the rigs, is there one thing that you would advise them to always look for in their arsenal? What is the one thing that is you fail safe, you know?
have plenty of fuel. But no, take everything in your arsenal. You want everything ready for you guys. You want to have your Islander lures. You want to have plenty of ballyhoo rigged up. You want to be ready for everything. Have your chuggers, your mid-range, of course, plenty of fuel, plenty of ice, and your tackle backup and stuff like that. And definitely check your window and have a float plan.
All right, well, you're doing a great job representing the Garmin
Yes, you
Lower
did.
Coast region. Bree, you got a question for Mr. Chad?
I'm just saying, you belong on live TV. You
Yeah.
did great.
Yeah.
We're so proud of you.
All right,
you got
I'm going
a
to go
job
ahead
here.
and take a look at the hot spots from the Lower Coast region. Chad says, inshore, redfish bite has been good out of Corpus Christi and Aransas Pass. Trout fishing continues to be good along the Lower Coast. And then offshore, head out deep to the floater rigs and any Lower Coast port for billfish and the tuna action that he showed us some pictures
That
for.
was definitely some tuna action.
Sushi.
For
Now
sure.
that's sushi in your
sushi
mouth
in
for
everyone's
a
mouth,
month.
people. Okay. Rick, CCA Texas is always going above and beyond for marine conservation, and when Hurricane Harvey destroyed acres of coastal marsh habitat along our coastline, CCA contributed $100,000 to help restore the marsh of Dickinson Bayou. They planted 10,000 stems of cordgrass donated by NRG Energy Eco Center that created 10 acres of marsh and restored 18 acres of wetlands. There really is no conservation feat too big or small for CCA Texas. They're
You know,
amazing.
it's whether it's fish hatchery, whether it's
everything.
restoring habitat,
Creating
whether
reefs,
it's
yeah.
fighting the legislation so that we can actually have all our fishing rights as they change constantly. CCA, way to go. You're
Yes.
doing a great job.
Yes, exactly. All right, we're feeling fresh here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report and heading to the Project's Lower Fresh and Startron Middle Fresh regions when we return, so stay hooked. And remember, to see what this crew is up to and everything fishing in Texas, make sure to visit our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, watch us on YouTube, and check us out on Instagram. That's in order. We'll be right back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. CCA Star, fishing fun for giant prizes and scholarships. And Project Smokehouse, a link above.
An entirely new species of extreme predator is moving offshore. The Yamaha 5.6-liter V8 XTO offshore outboard. Extreme big block thrust and power in the industry's first direct injection 4-stroke. Quiet, efficient, powerful, and proven Yamaha reliability. More than an outboard, it's a fully integrated power system. The all-new Yamaha V8 XTO offshore.
As close as you're gonna get to a sure thing for catching billfish is Guatemala.
They're here, man. This has been a 20-year run, buddy. These things haven't left. There's no cycle.
When it comes to sail fishing, this is the real deal.
The amount of sailfish here is ridiculous.
Today's Power Pole tip of the week is about the new and improved bracket for the 8-foot blade. Now, the 10-foot blade has always had this heavy-duty bracket, and it's because it's been so well received that we've decided now for 2019 to change the bracket on the 8-foot blade. So we have this heavy-duty bracket now as part of your 8-foot blade. The reason why I really like this is because it comes with all these plastic covers, so it encompasses all of your hydraulic hoses, But more importantly, in fishing situations, there's a lot of things back here on the boat that you could potentially lose a fish on, whether it's a trim tab or a prop. But guess what? Power Pole has done their job to make sure that there's nothing there for your line to get hung up on and potentially lose your fish. So if you're thinking about getting a new set of poles or upgrading your poles, think about the new 8-foot blade. It has all those sleek designs and comes in a variety of different colors. And that's today's Power Pole Tip of the Week. You know, Brie, the other day I was thinking back when I was doing that tip, I was thinking back, what was life before the Power Pole?
What is life?
No, but I mean, it was
Well,
like
no,
we
seriously,
carried
yeah.
sticks and stakes and we had to tie all these fancy knots and half the time in the rock bottom you couldn't get the pole stuck in. It was just such a mess. Now, push the button, they go down.
Welcome to the century.
Life
man.
made simple, Power Pole.
Okay, y'all, it's time to grab your Projects meat snacks because turkey is the new kale, and our guide Matt Reed in the Project Smokehouse Lower Fresh region has some ground to cover and fish to find. So Matt, let's get started.
Let's get this thing started on this little bitty lower freshwater region. I'm going to start off in the Austin area. Brian Cotter, Texas Hall's Guide Service, sends my reports weekly from that area, and I appreciate it a bunch. Let's get it rolling there. Lake Decker, the fish are biting really well. The worm bite is very strong with lots of fish, you know, that are still tight to the reeds up shallow. There's some good ones out in that 10 to 20 foot range, and some following the creek channels. So you just need to look for all different types of structures, and there's fish, you know, located on a bunch of things right now after the spawn, and they're just moving out. Catching a lot of 2 to 4 pound fish and a few in that 5 to 7 pound range there. Mostly using 4 or 5 inch sinkhole style worms and green pumpkin and watermelon. On the darker days, windy days, the dark colors are working better. Moving over to Lake Travis, it's spitting out quite a few fish right now using very small swim baits and shaky head crawls and trick worms in that shallow cover and also on the rock ledges close to the shore. Moving on up to Lake Bastrop, catching a lot of fish on Bastrop right now. Most of them are on the outside grass line on shaky head worms. One of the keys there right now is a very slow presentation. The fish aren't real aggressive, so you have to slow down and just be very patient, and you'll get some good bites on that shaky head on the outside grass line. Also catching a few, dragging a fluke through the grass. If you want to get there early and fish shallow, there's some biting a wake bait real early over the eelgrass. That's what I've got from the Austin area. Moving on out west, we're going to hit Lake Amistad. Lake Amistad is in that 70-degree water temperature range, which means their fish are mostly through spawning. There's probably a few stragglers still left. Man, there's a lot of numbers at Amistad right now. To locate the numbers, the anglers should concentrate in the far back of the major creeks using vibrating jig, twin baits, and square bills. The larger fish can be found out on the main lake in the mid-depth zones using a light Carolina rig and a shaky head. They began pulling water from Amistad for irrigation a couple of weeks ago, which makes those fish really congregate, you know, on the corners and stuff out on the main lake. Because of the pulling water, the current comes around, they left position there. So if you can find you some hydrilla growth out in that 10 to 15 foot range on the main lake, those fish are really using that grass to set up an ambush. Crankbaits and soft plastics will catch those fish on that new hydrilla growth. The post-spawn topwater bite is just kicking off really good. Walking baits are a great way to catch you a big one up shallow on that post-spawn bite. It's really fun there a lot of times during the topwater. That water's so clear, they'll come from a long way to you know, attack a big old, you know, walking bait, big spook or something like that. So get out there on Amistad, catch you a lot of numbers, and you're going to occasionally catch you a big one. Moving to Lake Somerville. Lake Somerville caught a bunch of water last week, came up 3 feet. The fish have moved back in the bushes. You need to fish shallow there. Fayette County is fishing really well. You're having to use real small baits right now. They're on a drop shot, a shaky head, or a Ned rig. Real small worms in that 12 to 18 foot of water on the main lake points and the intake is getting the job done. You need to fish slow again there because the fish just aren't real aggressive, but you can catch a lot of numbers doing that. Down at Falcon, the bass are biting really well on the square ball crankbait and school bus and moon glow and spinnerbaits on that mid-lake rock piles. Man, they're catching some good ones. Got a picture there, a couple of my customers with about an 8.5 pounder caught off one of those rock piles on a spinnerbait.
All right, bub, tell me about some white bass.
Oh, the white bass have gone crazy. Falcon, they're on the shad spawn, on the shallow windy points. You can catch all you care to catch, up there shallow every morning, and they just seem to bite every cast. It's a great thing for a kid. Get them out there and have fun.
All right, well, thank you so much. And guys, don't forget, if you're interested in some Prosex Smokehouse, you can go to prosex.com, use a promo code TIFR to get a 10% discount on anything you buy, whether it's jerky or rubs or anything. Maybe you can get you a new shirt like Brie got.
Yep, exactly.
Let's take a look at the hot spots from the Lower Fresh region. He says largemouth bass, they are on Fayette County Lake, biting shaky head rigged worms and drop shots on rocks and main lake points. Also biting crankbaits around the shallow grass, Brie.
All right, if you're fishing Toledo Bend or Sam Rayburn, get your jigs and minnows ready for the Star Middle Fresh region, right, Matt?
Right, Brie.
Hello, welcome to the show.
Hey, way to catch up, bud.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You're fine.
Right.
He's getting his jigs and minnows ready.
You're a human being who were bouncing the jig on the bottom. I get it.
Felt like I got a bite there for a second.
Go ahead. Tell me what's happening.
All right. So Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn, they're both incredible crappie fishing lakes, and this is one of my favorite times of year to go after the crappie on these lakes. Right now, the crappie are really beginning to stack up on that offshore cover, and with each passing day, more and more of those fish are finishing their annual spawning cycle, and they're making their way out to these summering areas. So you'll want to look for them in about 15 to 25 foot of water around shady cover. That cover can come in several different forms, like natural timber, ridge piling, man-made brush piles, or even grass if it's growing deep enough, especially on Rayburn. But the key here is the depth and the shade. So concentrate on any of those forms of cover and fish for the crappie about 8 to 15 foot down. They're going to usually suspend in that depth zone. So right now they get pretty aggressive about biting a jig early in the late spring, early summer kind of deal like this. So that's the first thing I'm going to pick up, something like a bass assassin, or I say bass assassin, panfish assassin rather, tiny shad. And as you well know, I like to keep it simple with my colors, especially with crappie fishing. So electric chicken and monkey milk are going to be my two go-to colors. If one of those isn't working, you're probably not in the right spot. So just fish it either tight lined, or you can throw it out and kind of let it pendulum down over the top of the fish for some good hard thumps. And if live bait is your thing, then that's cool too. They never really turn down a minnow either. So try those two techniques and just keep moving until you find them. They're pretty aggressive right now. I've got a picture here of a good example of what we've been catching, courtesy of my fellow guide, Mr. Josh McCarty. You can see there they caught a pretty good table full of them recently.
Yep, looking good.
Yep, and so next I'm going to move into the bass on Toledo Bend. They've been cooperating really well this week also. The fish are being caught in a variety of different ways, but my personal favorite way to catch them, and I think most folks would share this with me, is a frog. So late April and early May just really makes for some of the best frog fishing. You want to get in on that while you can because it doesn't last all year long. The fish are done spawning now for the most part, and they're looking to fatten back up. It's just a big, easy meal twitching on the surface. It serves it right up to them, and they can't stand it. So throw that frog, but keep in mind that most of this action is going to take place in the areas where those shad are spawning. So look for the shad flickering on the surface first thing in the morning and focus on those areas. And keep in mind that even though we're throwing baits in the frog category, that doesn't mean we're actually trying to imitate a frog. So don't reach for the frog-looking colors. Throw a white one to imitate those shad that are spawning. And then have another rod rig with a follow-up bait like a bass assassin vapor shad. If you miss a fish on the frog or you find that they just aren't feeding on the surface the way you want them to, that vapor shad will catch them. You'll want that in white also, and you really can't fish it wrong. Sometimes they eat it while you're twitching it fast up near the surface, and sometimes they want it slowly fluttering down like a dying bait fish. But it's a bait that will always get bites when the fish are feeding on fed. So just experiment with the presentation. Go throw those two around some shallow grass, and you can start getting bites pretty quick. I got another photo here for you of a nice lady that caught a big bass with my dad recently on Toledo. She had a pretty good one there. It probably stretched her string pretty good.
What's that slick water behind you? When I went to Texas, there wasn't anything like that. That's a lake.
Yeah. They're out on the main lake areas. That's where those shad usually like to spawn, is out toward the main lake.
Nice. All right. Well, what else you got for us this week, bub?
All right. Last, I'm going to touch on the yellow bass, or a lot of people know them as barfish, great table fare fish. They're being caught pretty well way up the Sabine River on sandbars. It's a current deal. Live minnows are a great way to catch them. So just put that minnow on a heavy split shot and kind of let it bounce along the bottom on those sandbars in the current to catch those.
All right. Thank you so much. Great report from the Startron Middle Fresh region. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots. Matt says crappie. They are hot on Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn at 15 to 25 feet of water using jigs and minnows. And then bass, they are also on Toledo Bend biting white frogs, vapor shads in the shallow grass. The yellow bass are spawning on sandbars in Sabine River and biting minnows.
Minnows. Well, he's got remedies and options for every kind of fishing that you want to do.
He really
That's good.
And he's also got Pearl. You know who Pearl is?
Oh, she's
the beautiful
one of
little dog.
Yeah, Miss Pearl. Miss Pearl.
Specialist Pearl.
All right, the Middle Coast region is the last region to conquer here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report, but I see Dave over there at the CCA workbench. He's making us want to spend some money
Pearl
on some new products.
I like Pearl.
Pearl is good.
Yeah,
Glass
I like my little dog too.
What is your dog?
I'm gonna bring my dog in here one day.
Fishing buddies.
Skipper the dog.
You bring a dog, I'll bring my baby.
Yeah, I named him after you.
Are you gonna bring your sons?
No.
All right, we'll be back with Dave.
I like to fly solo.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yeti, built for the wild. Ameritrail, load, launch, relax. Turn on the bite anytime. Tie on a Miralure. Building Conservation Trust. CCA's National Habitat Program. And Startron, cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems.
At the pinnacle of super high output, 4-stroke outboard performance, you'll find Yamaha VMAX SHO. Yamaha's game-changing SHO technology. From exhilarating V6 models to the sleek inline 4s, there's a VMAX SHO for everything from bass to bonefish. It's an extended family of 4-strokes engineered for lightweight, inspiring performance, and rock-solid reliability. Discover VMAX SHO and elevate your expectations.
Oh, there it is.
You can either stay busy fishing or get busy catching. From Texas to Tampa Bay or Key West to the Carolinas and beyond. For nearly 20 years, anglers everywhere have come to know one thing, that nothing says no to fish bites. Ask for Fish Bites and Fish Bites Fight Club lures by name or visit fishbites.com.
Over 40 years ago, Mr. Proshek began smoking meat in a little Texas town called Hilgi, combining fresh, grade A ingredients to create a variety of legendary smoked meats. Today, Proshek's Smokehouse is a Texas tradition, and now Proshek's not only satisfies hunger in Texas, but across the country. Visit Prosheks.com and order everything from fresh meats to your choice of jerky. Proshek's meats are made by Prosheks, sold by Prosheks, and can be delivered in as little as a day. Proshek's Smokehouse, a link above.
Well, we're here at the CCA Workbench, and
Yes, we
it's
are.
time to talk about some new products. And Dave, we have a beautiful Kubota sidekick over
Correct. The Sidekick RTV XG 850.
850.
It's very nice. And what Kubota did with this little unit here is they've made a work truck and a fun ATV out of it. It's all-wheel drive. It's got a nice big motor in it as well. 48 horsepower, I think. It'll go 40-something miles an hour. It
runs on gas.
Runs on gasoline. So it's a fun driving vehicle. It's got all-wheel drive, again, of independent suspension, front and back. And not only that, it's got a lot of torque and acceleration. So, the back bed there holds over 1,000 pounds of gear, and you can go straight up a hill. Doesn't matter. This thing has got power and fun at the same time. It merges those two things.
2,000 pounds.
Towing capacity.
Towing capacity.
Correct. So you can drag that thing. You can drag a nice little boat, through just about anything, and get to launch it with that thing. I mean, it's just awesome. I think you should get me one.
It also comes in a charcoal color, Dave. So
yeah,
you guys
that's
that
the Kubota
love,
orange there.
And you know what? So many states that we have that we're hunting in, you have to wear when you're going into the field. You have to wear orange.
Right.
So what a great vehicle to have for your deer hunting, to retrieve your deer, to put you out at the stand. They're nice and quiet.
Yep, and it's a 2-year, or 1,000-hour warranty on it as well.
That's an awesome piece of equipment.
Yes,
I think
sir.
I need that for the Bahamas. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. The Everglades or something would be good too. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about the CCA venting tool here.
Mm-hmm.
If you're bottom fishing and you're catching a lot of fish and during the day and you're in pretty deep water, you need water over 100 feet deep, you're going to be wanting to put those fish back down with a little bit of help, and because that swim bladder will blow up if you bring them up real fast. And what this does, this venting tool is you poke that in his belly there in his swim bladder, and you release that air so that he can swim back down. What's good about this one, it's made out of aluminum. It's got a locking needle on it, so you can unlock it with a little deal there. It's got a 36-inch lanyard. You can stretch it out when you want to. It goes from 6 to 36 inches. That thing is sharp, and it's also got a little place right here engraved on there that shows you where you're supposed to puncture. That's a red snapper, it looks like, but it's a perfect spot. 45-degree angle, right back where his pec fin comes back against his body, and that's a great spot. 45-degree angle.
Let me give you guys a little advice. When you go to vent the fish, use this part down and slide that so that it'll slide up underneath the scale.
Yeah, instead of popping them off.
And then once you poke it, take your thumb and push on the fish's belly or wherever you see him swollen, and that you'll hear the air coming out.
Right.
All right. So, that's good stuff. Way to go, CCA.
CCA Venting Academy. All right, here we got this AFCO Connery quarter zip pullover. These things protect your neck and your upper body from the sun. It's got SPF 50. It's got all the aft guard stain protection, antimicrobial. It's got a very soft stuff that it's made out of. It's called Cotonou. Yeah, new cotton-like, and it's a microfiber stuff, and it's very soft, softer than cotton, and dries 6 times faster than cotton.
Dave, I want you to know
this thing is very soft.
One of my favorites. I promise. They have this in a seafoam mint color. They have it in a gray, blue. Right. I wear these 3 out of 7 days a week.
Real quick, we'll go to the 360 GT search baits. We'll do those shorts later. This is a Storm 360 GT search bait, and it's got a little, this is the swimming version, which has now come out with a little lip on it. Before there was just a jig head, and that really gives this thing a lot of action. They call it the 360 degree GT search bait because you can throw it 360 degrees around your boat and just reel it back.
Crank it back.
Just crank it back. It's great in salt water, fresh water. It's a great bait if you don't know where the fish are and you're trying to locate fish. That little search bait, just about everything will eat it. It doesn't matter, fresh or saltwater, trout, snook, everything.
Dave, if you're going to try this for the first time, what color, if you're bass fishing, would you go with?
If I'm in dark tannic water, I'm going to use white, and if I'm in clear water, I'm either going to use a light blue or a green, pumpkin seed green.
Okay, so if I'm red fishing or trout fishing,
I picked those colors myself. So
if I'm red fishing or trout fishing, again, same colors, match the hatch, guys. Or you could go to something real dark if the water's muddy, and then you'll know 100% whether they see it or they don't.
Correct.
All right, speaking of see it or we don't, Bree, we got one more region to go to, so let's see what it is.
Let's see. All right, the Middle Coast region is looking pretty nice for your weekend offshore and inshore fishing excursions, and Captain Bink Grimes is cluing us in on the hot spots and whatnots, so go for it, Bink.
We've been dealing with a lot of wind here lately. We finally got a little break in the weather, which doesn't happen a whole lot with April, but light winds kind of showed up last week, and we really capitalized on our catches. In the bays around Freeport, Bastrop, and Christmas Bays, there's fish all over the reef. Best bet's been on live shrimp casted to the edge of the reef. Along with trout, there are black drum and small redfish on the edge of those reefs as well. In Palacios, guide Ray Sexy, the trout buys on lures has been excellent wages. He's worked the south shoreline of West Bay most days and concentrated wading the flat. He said most of the trout have been hanging about 40 to 50 yards off the shoreline, and with a super low tides. But we got a lot of southeast wind pumping in right now, and our tides have pumped up, and it should be the same for the weekend. And so a lot of those fish are going to be hanging closer to the shoreline. In Matagorda, guide Tommy Alexander's been drifting with plastic shrimp and live shrimp and catching trout to 7 pounds. The low tides concentrated those fish in the middle of the bay. But now, like I said, the tides have come up, and those fish are going to hit the shoreline. Reefs on the north shoreline of West Bay has produced, limits of trout for guide Michael Roth on live shrimp under popping cork. He's working those areas around Twin Islands and Shell Island. And then in Rockport, guide Rhett Price, those trout have been hit or miss wading with lures. It's starting to become a live bait, a little better live bait bite since the water temperatures are 75 or better. And the low tides and the backside of the full moon and this tough April wind made for tougher fishing. The top waters with our temperatures in the 70s, top waters have been good, and also the Mirror Lure Double D's. He said live bait has been better on live shrimp, and they're starting to catch a few trout on croakers as well. And then at Port O'Connor, Lynn Smith said the jetties are holding trout on the green tides. Sand and grass areas around Pascaval are paying off as well on the incoming tide. There's a photo right there of Tommy Alexander, that 7-pound trout he caught this past weekend at the tournament. Won him a little money for fishing East Matagorda Bay. We're catching a 5 to 7 pound trout just about every day in East Matagorda Bay right now.
Wow.
We'll go to redfish. There's lots of shrimp in our bays, and our bait shrimpers, they're having no problem catching the tanks and keeping the tanks full. When that happens, that means there's a lot of shrimp in the bay. That means we got a pretty good bite. There's tons of redfish in the Matagorda surf. Most of those reds are slot size, and they're hanging in the first gut. Best bait's been live shrimp. Then those bull redfish are hanging around the jetty, and we're targeting them on table shrimp. The surf side of Port O'Connor jetty, you're holding big reds too. Some on crab, some on free line and those Gulf shrimp, or Carolina, those big old, 9, 12 table shrimps that we like to eat. Tides have been low up until the last few days, and a lot of our red fishermen have been going back to their winter pattern. But as of today, tides have bulled up, so they're going back to the grass line and throwing right up against the grass where all those reds are trying to nose all and root all those shrimp out of the grass. Morning tide's been the best. As the day progresses, that tide's swelling up, and we've actually had a really, really good afternoon bite as well. Then the diversion channel in Matagorda is doing the same thing. Fishing will drop from 2 to 5 foot of water. Diversion gets better with the low tides. We'll go offshore in Freeport. Red snapper have been good in state waters for Mike Siegel of Real Thrill Charters. He's dropping sardines in about 35 to 40 foot of water. It's been a rough deal. It's just when it's blowing 20, 25 knots, it's rough out there. And that's what's been happening. Matagorda the same way. Michael Quebecki said, man, if you can get out there, you can catch 15 to 18 pound snapper just, right in state waters. And but it's just been kind of tough. You gotta man up and get out there. Quebec and Siegel both said the kingfish and the cobia and the wahoo are migrating closer. He's found cobia in 75 to 100 foot of water. Wahoo are showing up as well. Swordfish and tuna as well. Beach water temperature 75 degrees now.
Those pelagics are coming in. There's a lot of rips in about 75 to 100 foot of water, and those cobia and triple tail are showing up. So it's getting hot down here. Our humidity right now was 83% today, so it's starting to feel like summer in Texas.
Sounds like you got it going on, Bink. You're on a roll. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the CCA Texas hotspots from the Middle Coast region. The trout, well, they are good on the incoming tide for waders, tossing topwaters over sand and grass in Matagorda and Port O'Connor. The low tides have them congregated in redfish in the wintertime holes and along the drop-offs at Freeport Jetty.
Well, would you look at that? We've been through all the regions. We have one of our awesome captains here with us, which you did a great job. We need to have you on the show more often.
Heck yeah.
Thank you for being here.
I like it when the boys come in and do my job for me.
Yeah, Dave, just, go make some trouble.
Fire off a question, get a good answer. Fire off a question, get a good answer.
So, Chad, what kind of fishing are you going to do when you get home?
Tell you what, the weekend's looking great, so I'll be in the bay actually and offshore.
Whoa, you got a new boat coming, a little Maverick HPXS.
Yes, I do. I'm looking forward to that.
Getting up there shallow.
Lucky man.
I'm going to play with the skinny water.
All right, well, thanks for being here, Chad. Thank you guys for tuning in. We hope you have a great weekend on the water. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.